this, we were told to pack enough food, and they put us in a truck and drove us to that place, to Santo Tomas. And we went in there, and we were assigned to classrooms, which became dormitories. And the men were in some rooms and the women in other rooms. They were separated. And we had cots, mosquito nets.
You were with your mother because you were young? Were you with her?
We were the whole family.
Oh.
Yeah, my brother and I and my parents.
What year was this?
Huh?
What year? 41.
That would have been, yeah,
41.
right at the end of 41.
Or 42 now, wouldn't it?
And so we went in there in this truck, and we were assigned to these rooms, men here, women here, and children in another area, and we were children. So we went in with these kids. My mother went into a room with women. My father went into a room with men. And shortly after that, I was 12, I was moved to one of the men's rooms. There were about 60 cots in each classroom. Boy, I'm having a hard time remembering all this.
Doing good.
And they were quite crowded. You have whatever possessions you had was under your cot. And we all had mosquito nets there, so that made it even more crowded. Well, very quickly, and I was just a kid, remember, so I wasn't involved in some of these things, but we formed an internees organization. You'd be surprised how Americans can organize. And we had a chairman and a committee and so forth, and they divided into various committees for like policing, sanitation, food, and so forth.
Education?
Education, that's an important one. For the first few days or weeks, our food came in through the front gate, brought by Filipinos who were formerly servants of some of the people who were in there. And it was hard to come by food, but then after a month or two, food service was organized, a kitchen and so on, and we'd line up and get food. It was enough food. Big scoop of rice and then various stuff on top of that. So weeds, vegetables they called them, kangkong, and some things like that which you really wouldn't want to eat. Well, as I said, I was a kid, so a school was pretty quickly formed. And we had a lot of really good teachers among the internees. A lot of them had been teachers before, and others were specialists in one field or another, like my dad was a geologist, and eventually he had taught a class in geology. And up on the roof of the main building, there was a three-story building on the roof, there were some chemical labs up there. And that's where we had our school, in those labs. We went up there, and 3 years later when we got out, they gave us a little sheet of paper which described what our school had been, and hoping that where we went from then on they would accept that teaching that we had had those 3 years.
And they did.
And
They did.
we found we weren't far behind.
Oh,
We were in pretty good shape except for certain subjects. They didn't, Jeffs didn't allow the teaching of some subjects. Geography, in fact, was one. But most of the sciences they taught as well as they could without books or labs. Well,
Tell about how your father designed your house.
oh yes. In those early days, they had set up a loudspeaker system. And in the evening, we had a roll call. We had a roll call morning and evening. Sometimes you had to stand there for a long time before everybody was counted and the Japs were satisfied. But after roll call in the evening, some people brought out little mats, woven, what do they call that stuff?
Nipa.
Huh?
Not Nipa?
Like Nipa, anyway. And they'd sit on the grass out there. in the evening and listen to that music that was played over the loudspeaker system. It was nice. And pretty soon, people elaborated on that piece of map. They bring other things out there and kind of leave them out there and establish a place. And by golly, eventually people start building little huts out there. And these huts, my father was, as a matter of fact, he built several of them for people. They were made of bamboo and woven nipa and stuff like that. Not a nail in them. The bamboo was bound together in such a thatched roof on them. And there was probably 500 to 1,000 huts built out on the grounds of the campus.
And that's how your father made money, because he built these too.
He built them, yeah. And so these became villages. This was Glamorville over here, Boggy Bottom over here, and so on. All these little villages spread around the campus there.
Which one
What was
did,
the name of your village?
I lived in Glamorville and later moved over to, I can't remember the name of that next one we moved to. We lived there, had a lovely place to live in. All bamboo, and the floors were split bamboo tied together with strips of this very stout fiber stuff. And we had one floor, and there was a living room, kitchen here, and over here was a bedroom for my parents, and above it was a bedroom for my brother and me, with a little bamboo ladder leading up to it. And we lived there for those 3 years quite comfortably. We were very happy in the camp. We played games and so on. Both the children and adults had leagues, baseball leagues and basketball there. We passed our time that way. And an education system developed, and we were put into classes, regular classes. And as I say, we didn't fall behind. So this went on until October of '44, and Manila was bombed then by American planes from carriers outside of the Philippines. Came over and bombed Manila. That was the first time. And first they bombed the island of Leyte, and then they bombed Mindoro and the Manila area. Let's see now. Those 3 years passed in, you might say, tedium.
You need to talk about those last few years. You were on calories of about 900 calories.
Well,
a
the
day.
food got more and more scarce as time went on. The servants and so on weren't allowed to bring it anymore. We had to supply our own food, and I don't know how it was done, but the committee was in charge of food, and we had service lines, and my brother and I, and a lot of the kids our age, were carrying these big pots of mush. Oh, they were this big around, that deep, heavy, and one would grab a handle on one side and one on the other, and he'd put his hand on his shoulder, and we'd go through hot stuff coming through, and they'd have to get out of our way. So it got so food was scarce, and people didn't get it from the outside anymore, so everybody lived off of the camp food. And as Sarah was saying, somebody figured up the calories, and it was down towards the end there, the last few months, to about 1,000 calories a day.
Oh, 900.
900, she says. And that's probably about right. Well, the Americans started coming back. We didn't know what was going on. There was a secret radio somebody had, and they would very carefully let information out about how the war was going. And the Americans came and they landed on Leyte Island in the southern islands of the Philippines. And then they started moving up closer to us. Things got pretty exciting.
Dad, can I interrupt you before you get on to liberation? A little bit more about food. There's two stories I'd like to hear you tell. The one about what Grandpa did for food in the kitchen, and what Grandma sold to get some rice.
Tell them.
Well,
Your
you're
story.
telling stuff I've never heard before. This is great.
Well, it's true. Like you've heard this story many times probably about wartime, that my mother traded her engagement ring which was, diamond ring for sugar. And I don't remember how much sugar she got for it, but it was probably a pound or two of sugar.
And some beans.
Huh?
And some beans, I think.
Beans? Not could have been. Could well have been. Because we began to starve then in mid-44. We were liberated in early 45, so that's 6 months there was when it really got rough. And people started dying.
And Grandpa getting scraps from the kitchen floor.
And Grandpa, my dad, was working in the kitchen and would smuggle food out when he could. All the guys working in the kitchen had a little bag they hung inside their pants. A little bag going down each leg. They'd put what they get some cornmeal or something like that. It'd go into that bag and they'd come out with it.
Well, and didn't your folks get both you boys jobs in the kitchen so you could scrape the pans?
Well, we got jobs in there carrying those big pots.
Didn't your mother give up her food for you and your brother, and she
Probably,
became very thin?
probably. Oh yes.
But
Yeah.
she said, no, I don't think she did that. But they